Creatures of the night. That was a phrase used to describe vampires and other ghouls. For me, the night hadn't ever held any kind of appeal, at least not at first. I was a normal college girl, an anomaly if you really looked at it. I didn't party like the other students on campus. I thought it was a waste of time. Don't get me wrong, I got why they partied. Finally, not having to adhere to a curfew, no one to tell you what to do, freedom from any kind of parental governance. Yes, party here I come. However, I was different. I didn't feel like I'd escaped from a restrictive home. I came from a quiet home. My grandmother wasn't any stricter than any other parent. She raised me with a Christian moral code. She was a Baptist. I knew she cared for me the best way she knew how, and yet I hadn't felt loved. My father dropped me off on her doorstep after burying my mother. He hadn't been able to cope with her death, and he didn't want to care for an infant. So, Grandma took me in and did her best. Fast forward 21 years, and we're at my present. 4 months ago, in late May, I allowed my friends to talk me into going to Hampton Beach. I had taken my last final, and the semester had been brutal. For once, I needed to blow off some steam. I went for several reasons. First, I was restless, and second, I wanted to add more to my journal. While my friends dabbled in all sorts of drugs, I watched and documented how they reacted to cannabis, ecstasy, and alcohol. All my classes were in the morning. I planned them that way. By midday, I was free, and then it was off to my part-time job at the pizzeria. My scholarship covered my education and books. Room and board were my responsibility. That Friday, I was off and had the whole weekend to recover should anything happen at the beach. We were going to stay with a friend of a friend who had a beach house out there. I was excited because I didn't have to pay for my accommodations. I packed my best outfits, a bikini, and my journal. I had never been to New Hampshire before, and I had heard so much about the beach from my friends who had been out there last summer. I planned to enjoy myself. I had never indulged in any break shenanigans, spring or otherwise, so I was curious. Besides, I rented a car. If I wanted to leave, I could. We arrived around 6 p.m., and by then, most of the kids were already halfway drunk or high. The first thing I did was eat something. Being proactive was what I did best. In case someone slipped me something, I wanted a full stomach to counter any effects. After eating my fill, I relaxed enough to wander around the beach. Every few feet was a bonfire with people laughing and dancing, generally having fun. I visited several such groups where I danced, sipped on my beer, and thoroughly enjoyed myself. I could never understand why people had bonfires, and besides, weren't they illegal? I was already warm. Even though there was a cool breeze coming off the ocean, it was still hot. I broke away to walk along the water's edge, to cool off. The water felt cold but tolerable, and I waded in until the water reached my waist. The moon was full, and the ocean glowed in its light. Before I knew it, I was swimming further from shore, enjoying the quiet. So, you can imagine my surprise and alarm when I heard a distressed cry, somewhere close to where I was swimming. I searched frantically until I located a lone figure, struggling against the waves tugging on him. He looked like he was drowning. I swam out to him and caught his flailing arms. He was fully dressed, but I could feel his cold skin through them. He looked pale and he latched onto me. "Hold on, I'm going to swim us back to shore," I told him. He closed his eyes and held on. I put his arms around my shoulders and began to swim, pulling him along. We were doing well when I felt a sting on my shoulder. I thought a jellyfish had got me, but when I looked, it was him. He was biting me. I shrugged his mouth off and continued to swim. The going was slow, and I began to feel cold. Halfway to shore, I began to feel weak and tired. I felt us going down, but then he grabbed me around my waist, and with a powerful thrust of his legs, we were back up to the surface again. As soon as we broke through, he went limp again. I panicked and swam as fast as I could. When we got there, a crowd had gathered. They'd witnessed the whole thing. A lifeguard said that he'd already called for an ambulance. Once I had him laying flat, I started CPR with the lifeguard on standby. About a minute into the routine, he coughed and I got a mouthful of seawater. I stopped and turned him around over onto his stomach. That's when I noticed the blood oozing out of his mouth. I wiped at mine and discovered that what I thought was seawater was blood. I swallowed some strange guy's blood and I gagged. When the paramedics showed up, they took over and tried to revive him and continued CPR, up until they loaded him into the ambulance. I knew the guy I swam back to shore with was gone. I felt woozy from the exertion and the realization. The paramedics insisted that I go to the hospital, especially since they assumed the blood all over me wasn't mine. One of the medics sitting in the back with us asked me questions about the guy I couldn't save. I don't know who he was. I heard him cry out for help and I swam out to help him, I told him. There isn't any identification on him. It must have gotten lost in the water, the paramedic surmised. I didn't answer because I didn't know, but I did wonder why a fully clothed man was out in the ocean drowning. Did he wander into the water or did he fall off a boat? I looked at him on the gurney. They didn't cover his face. He looked dead. At the hospital, we were separated. The emergency room doctor admitted me for observation. I didn't argue. I wasn't feeling so great. I still felt dizzy, and I drank some strange man's blood. The doctor did some tests, and they all came back fine, except that my hemoglobin and temperature was incredibly low. He guessed my temperature was low due to the time I'd spent in the water. He wrote me a prescription for iron supplements. Sometime during the night, I got up to use the bathroom. In the glaring light, I studied my face in the mirror over the sink. I remembered how the guy bit me on my shoulder. I looked and there weren't any teeth marks or any indication that anything had bitten me. I went back to bed wondering if I had imagined the whole thing. After rounds the next day, the doctor deemed me fit for discharge. I asked about the man that came in the ambulance with me, and he said he didn't know. I took a cab back to the house and told my friends that I was going home. My friend drove my car back to the beach house, and I thanked her, grabbed my stuff, and left. I drove back to school and took a long, hot shower and washed my hair. I loved medicine, but I didn't like the hospital smells. My life had gone back to normal until a few days later. The police were waiting for me when I returned from class. They said they were investigating the incident at the beach and wanted my statement. I agreed and went with them to the station. There, I sat and listened to a detective tell me that Sergei Montanescu, the man I couldn't save, was the son of a European diplomat. I told them what happened up until we got to the hospital. The detective seemed satisfied with my account, and then said that Serge's family wanted to thank me for my efforts to save their son. He offered to drive me to the family's residence. I agreed because, well, it seemed the right thing to do. I figured they'd say thank you, and then I'd go on my way. Besides, I was curious. I wanted to know more about him. The drive took over an hour. The house was in a secluded area of Suffolk County near Riverhead. The long driveway alone told me that their home would be impressive. At the end of the driveway, the detective walked me to the front door and turned to leave. The mansion was indeed impressive, and I didn't have much time to admire the outside of it when a Jeeves-looking butler answered the door. He led me to a huge room I took to be a library. There was at least 100 or more old leather-bound books on the built-in shelves and Renaissance portraits on the walls. The furniture was soft brown leather, and the windows were covered with sun-blocking drapes. "Ms. Michaels?" I turned to the sound of my name. If I had to guess what an aristocrat looked like, then the man approaching me would have been my choice. He was tall and thin. The gray at his temples gave him an exotic look, and his eyes were dark. He had an accent I couldn't place. "Ms. Michaels, my name is Rodrigo Montanescu. I wanted to thank you for trying to help my son. The detective who brought you here told me that you were kept overnight at the hospital. Were you injured in any way?" he asked me. His voice was mesmerizing, and I cleared my throat to find mine. "No, I'm fine. I'm sorry for your loss. The police told me that he died." "Thank you. Serge's death is tragic. The result of rebellious life, I suppose. He was reveling with his friends on their yacht and fell overboard," Mr. Montanescu told me. "Oh, how old was he?" "Serge was 30 years old. He was so young," I thought to myself. Mr. Montanescu sat down on a wing chair across from me and motioned for me to sit also. I sat wondering why he wanted to see me. "Ms. Michaels, my family and I are grateful for your efforts. We would like to reward you, even though Serge still died. Very few people would go out of their way to help someone these days. We really appreciate that." Oh no, that's not necessary, really, I protested. I didn't think I deserved anything. My dear, it is very necessary. Now tell me, what can I do for you? He asked. What do you mean? I countered. Come now, there must be something you need. Tuition at the college must be a burden. I took the liberty of checking. Your scholarship only covers your schooling and books, so you work to cover your living expenses. I would like to provide for your expenses for the remainder of your time at the college. Would that be satisfactory? That's very generous, but you don't have to do anything, I said. I was getting a bad vibe from him. Why does he know so much about me? I wondered. Ms. Michaels, my son gave you a gift before he died. I just want to help you with it. Your son didn't give me anything. He barely spoke when I swam out to help him. If he had anything on him, it's at the bottom of the ocean or on the yacht he fell off from. If you say so, he shrugged. I still would like to give you a token of my appreciation. I believe in the coming weeks. You will need it, he said mysteriously. That's very kind and generous of you. Thank you, I said and stood up. The butler appeared suddenly and beckoned to me. I followed him to the door where he placed an envelope in my hand and gently pushed me out the door. I turned to find the detective was waiting for me. He drove me back to my dorm. If you are enjoying this story, stay tuned for the next installment. Please like and subscribe as it helps grow the channel.